Hello, welcome to the TechHub.training Power BI Studio C YouTube Revenue Analytics Challenge Solution. Today we'll be walking through how you can help the controller at BYU Broadcasting unlock some insights in the revenue data directly exported from YouTube. This is a partial data set of real data from Studio C revenue. So let's go ahead and jump into the challenge. So the first step is we're going to load in the sketch data file and the YouTube general CSV file. Let's start with the sketch list, which is an Excel file. So we'll go ahead and click import data from Excel. And then we're going to click sketch list here to upload it. Again, you'll have downloaded this from the website. And then it's going to be trying to detect some tables. I personally like to choose tables. If you choose this, you might get an extra column or two, but you should still be able to be just fine as long as you delete the extra column. So we're going to go ahead and click transform data here, and we want to make sure the season data type is showing up as a text. You see it's currently showed up as a number. You're going to run into some errors if you do this and you click text. So to help you avoid this error, and the reason is because it's already a changed type step here, and if you do two of those in a row, sometimes Power BI doesn't really like to work correctly all the time. So what I like to do instead is I like to modify this change type step directly. So we can see if you look to this code here, what it did was it applied sketch YouTube title and unique ID and assigned it a text type. We want to do the exact same thing to the season column, so all we have to do is replace int64 type with type text, just like how the other two columns are. And now we can hit close and apply, and then the data will load into our model. Takes a little bit of time. Great. So now our data is loaded. You can see it's right here in the data pane. Let's name this sketch list to be consistent. And now we can load our CSV file. So if we go back to the home, we click get data, and we choose text/CSV this time. You want to navigate to the CSV file that you downloaded from the website, which contains some YouTube revenue data here. So let's go ahead and click transform, which will open up Power Query. And this time, all we need to do is keep 5 columns of this data. So we want to delete all the other columns here. So what I like to do, and I'll show you guys this, is I actually like to highlight the columns that I want to keep, not the ones that I want to remove. So in this case, I'm going to highlight day. I'm going to hit Control and then hit Asset Title so I can do a multi-select. We also want to keep Custom ID, Owned Views, and we also want to keep Partner Revenue here on the right. So if we want to delete all the other columns, we can go to Home, and you can see there's this Reduce Rows option here. Or sorry, we want to worry about columns, do this Manage Columns, click Remove Columns, and then hit Remove Other. Don't hit this one. This defaults to removing the columns highlighted, but if you hit Remove Other, it'll remove all the other columns except for the ones that we want to keep. So now we have our step here. So now we can get Close and Apply, and that should apply the changes that we need. And now we have the YouTube general here. So the last step we need to do is we need to kind of analyze the data, see what we're looking at, and then define the relationships between the two. So we have 3 layout views in Power BI: the report, the table, and the model view. Let's go ahead and take a brief look at the table view. So if you haven't looked at the data yet, here's just a good way to kind of see what the data looks like. So here's the normal YouTube general CSV. You can see there's a day, then asset title. You can notice the date format's weird. I'm sure you guys noticed that. The asset title, this is the YouTube sketch title. So you can see Awkward Funeral right here, or sorry, Fainting Goat Boys is right here. So a custom ID, so YouTube will assign it a custom ID by default, and then 4 views, and then the total revenue. We can interpret this to mean that on December 31st, there were 4 views on Fainting Goat Boys. BYU Broadcasting earned 4 cents in revenue on that day. So it's important to understand that there could be multiple lines here, like Fainting Goat Boy could be on here multiple times because it could have been seen on multiple days. In contrast, let's look at the sketch list. This is a unique lookup table of sorts that has a sketch title here along with a unique ID and then the season that it belongs to. So Unlike the YouTube general title, the unique ID is only on here once. So what this is doing is it's taking the sketch YouTube title and assigning it to a season based on the unique ID. So one unique ID can belong to many custom IDs based on what the challenge is telling you guys. So we need to actually link that here in the model view. So here we are able to see visually what these two tables look like. We can see our 3 columns in the sketch list and our 5 columns in the YouTube general. So because we know we want to link unique to custom ID, let's go ahead and click and drag unique ID to custom ID. You can see Power BI is already generating this one-to-many relationship, which is what we want, which is what we know we want. You can also look in the properties here to make sure that this is correct and change any other things that you're going to change. For our case, you should simply just be able to define the relationship, and that's it. So now we're ready to go back to report view and start generating our report. So for this portion of the video, I'm going to switch to the solution and illustrate how I was able to go through the challenge. So first, it asks us to actually go back into Power Query and clean the YouTube general data further. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is click Queries and Transform Data, and that'll pull up Power Query directly. In this case, we're going to want to edit the YouTube general title, or YouTube general table, and we're going to want to add this week column here. So you can see I did this here. And so days 1 through 7 are the first week, 8 through 14 are the second, 15 through 21 are the third, and 22 through 31 are the final week. So how do we do this? Let's look at the code here. So anytime you want to add a custom column, you're going to click Add Column and then click Custom Column. And that'll bring up a menu that you can use to code what you want the column to look like based on previous columns. So you'll notice the first issue here is the day used to be this big number. So if we go here, we can see this day here was just this big number. So we got to get this to change to a date because otherwise we have no way to extract the day. So what I did here, was I took this type and changed it. So you see Power BI initially read this in as a text, so you can see that here. So what I did was I modified that type directly into a date. So if this is showing up as a number for you, you're going to have to change it from a number to a text first. I don't know why. This is something interesting and unique about Power BI, but you can only change it from text to a date. You can't go straight from a number to a date. So that's why I have 2 change type steps here. I changed the date type to a text, and then I changed it to a date. And you'll note to do this, you don't actually need to type in any code. You can just click this here and choose your type. So I just did that twice in 2 separate steps. So once you have the day column, you're able to then use that in a function here to pull the day out of this to get the week number. So now let's look at this add custom. So we go to add column, hit custom column, and then you get a menu that looks something like this. So we want to name this new column week, and then we're going to have to define it. So based on the syntax and how to do a custom column, this is how you would do it. So you would just do if and then date.day. So what this is going to do is it's going to take the day column, which is a full date, and extract just the day of the date in the day column. I know it's kind of confusing when the column itself is named day, but this could be named, like if this were named calendar or something, you could put calendar in here and you would be fine. But this date.day is essentially taking this 12/1/2023 and extracting just the 1 out of it. If it's less than 7, then it's going to be 1, because 1 through 6 is week 1, 1 through 7, so less than or equal to. And then you can just do a lot of copy and paste here. So date.day less than 14, so if it's 8 through 14, it'll be week 2, etc., and then you have your column. So if you ever want to insert a column, you can also click, if you highlight the column, click insert that over. So we'll go ahead and get out of this menu. We don't want to save any changes because I already did it, but that's what you'll want to do yourself when you're looking into adding the date. So now that we have our data cleaned, I can go in and we can start building our model. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of Power Query. And this is what your final model is going to look like, but let's break this down. So we want to create the page called Total Revenue. So that's showing right there. Highlights total December revenue. And then let's take a look at the bar chart here. So in the visualizations, you'll see here, it's known as a stacked column chart in Power BI. And so if you just drag the stacked column chart, you should be good. And then we want the day of the week on the x-axis and the daily revenue total on the y. So if you go into your YouTube general, you have this day here that you can drag here into the x-axis. It's going to default to having all of the days of the week here, so like all of the dates. As you see, I have day here. So let me actually just show you what I mean here. When you drag the day here, you'll have year, quarter, month, and day. So you see how that looks kind of bad? If we just want to only worry about the day, you can just get rid of all the other ones, and then you'll be left with just the day. And then if you drag partner revenue into the y-axis, it will default to sum, which is what we want. And then I had you guys do some formatting options. Hopefully you guys didn't struggle too much with this. It's just a lot of clicks and trying to find where things are. So you'll notice this title is bolded. So to do this, if you go to Visual, you can go to General, Title, and then you can click the bold here. If you want to make your font bigger, you can do that. I also center aligned it, make it look a little better. And if you want to change the axes, you just go to Visual, X-axis. Here's your ranges, but if you click your title, here's where you can change your title, day of the week. And then again, if you go into y-axis, you can do the same thing. And then for your values here, if you wanted to change the colors of the numbers themselves, I didn't have you do that for the challenge. You could do it here. And what I found a little tricky was trying to figure out how to do the column colors, because Power BI will default to like it's blue or whatever. So if you actually go into columns, it has its own menu here, and you can change your color here. So that's how you would do that directly. And then finally, to change the background color, you just can do General, and let's get out of this. And then I believe if you, or maybe it is in the visual. With formatting, it's important to just, if you aren't sure where things are, Power BI's menu is very exhaustive, and you should be able to eventually find what you're looking for, as long as you just keep looking. So in this case, general effects, here's our background, and then I like to make it a lighter blue, so you can change this transparency to a 75%. So that's how to do all the formatting for everything. So for the rest of this video, I will focus less on the formatting and more on the data. So the next thing that we asked you to do was to have a slicer that shows the week. So the week that we just calculated here. So if you go to Build Visual, you can see there's this slicer option right here. So what I mentioned in the challenge was you don't want to click this slicer new, a different format slicer, and you're going to realize you're not going to be able to format it how you want. So let's just take a look at what this looks like. So for a slicer, your only requirement is the field you want. So in this case, we want to drag our week column in there, and then we want a vertical list, which is what it's showing here. So if we go to Format, Slicer Settings, we can have our style. We can pick different options. So if we wanted a tile, we could do that. Or if we wanted a drop down, we could do that. However, we want a vertical list. So I was able to also do some formatting to this. I bolded the title, changed the background color, and changed the values. However, I also was able to space out the numbers. So how you can do that is very interesting. So if you go into the values menu, you can update this padding. And what the padding does is it tells you how much space is between all the variables. So if you want to change this to 20, for example, it'll make them closer together. So I'll keep it to where I had it before. And then the last step is we're going to add these cards that show average daily revenue and daily revenue peak. So with Power BI, if you're going to do any sort of calculations, you need to do it in a measure. Luckily, these are ones that you can do pretty easily within Power BI itself using the quick measure feature. So I already have these created here, but I will show you how I did them by recreating it here. So if you go to the quick measure, and in this case, let's work on average daily revenue. So we got to select a calculation. We have lots of different options here. In this case, we're just going to click average per category. And then we need to select a base value. So in this case, we want to get the average daily revenue per day. Think of it as like a denominator of sorts. So in this case, we go to YouTube General and select day. Oops, hold on. Oh, sorry, I flipped it. The base value is actually going to be our revenue. So let's go ahead and hit partner revenue. And then let's go ahead and change this to average. Average of partner revenue. And then the category is where we're going to segment it per day. So these values are very helpful. So the value we want to average is the partner revenue. So in this case, let's actually change this to sum. Category, we're going to go ahead and here's where we're going to select day. And then click add. In this case, I added it to the sketch list by mistake, but you can see it's going to generate this measure here for you, and then you can drag it into a card. So in this case, I'm just going to delete this one because I already have it here. So I'm just going to click delete. And we have this average daily revenue here, which says the same exact thing. And then you want to do something similar for the daily revenue peak. So in this case, it's going to be a max. That's the only difference. So when you click average here, you're going to click max per category instead of average. And that's the only difference. So once you have your two measures, you can go ahead and in the visualizations menu, you're going to click card to add a card. And then you're going to do that twice. Again, there's this card new option. Ignore this. Only use the card version here. So let's take a look at the card settings I have here. So for the fields, you can just drag that average daily revenue in. So anytime you want to do a calculated field to display it, that's how you're going to do it. And then you can just apply some formatting like I did here to bold it, make it look similar theme-wise. And that's it for that first page. So now let's jump into the season by season breakdown and how we make this visualization here. So the first thing is we actually need to use Power Query to add a new column called cleaned season to the sketch list table to be able to make these compilations. So remember, to access Power Query, we're going to hit transform data. Then we can go ahead and make sure our sketch list is done. So you will only have these three columns, but we need to add this cleaned season here. So you'll note in the challenge that a compilation means it has a dash in the middle. So if it says 1-7, it means it's a compilation of sketches from seasons 1 through 7. So we want to look for columns that contain a dash in the middle. And in the hints I mentioned, you might want to look into using text.contains. So let's double check and see what my code looked like when I made this. So again, you're going to want to add a conditional column this time. So what you can do is you can see, let me just show you what this menu looks like here. So if you click add column, you can click conditional column, and that'll bring up this menu here. So what you can do is you want to name your new column cleaned season, and then you can do if select your column, so season contains a dash, you can just manually type this in, then compilations. And that's it, because everything else, we just want to keep the normal season. So if you use a conditional column, it's very easy. If you want to just add the column using code, that's where you'd want to use your text.contains. So that's kind of what this is looking like here. So if text.contains, you identify your column and then a dash. Then compilations, else that season's going to carry over. And you'll notice the text type is kind of a mix here because we have numbers and we have compilations in here, which is what we want. So we're going to go and close out of that. We're not going to apply any changes because this is the solution file, but you would make sure to apply all of your changes when you do yours. So the first step is to create a tree map. So tree maps are a really unique and colorful way to visualize how big a value is. So in this case, we want to do a tree map that displays total revenue by each cleaned season in December. So what this is showing us, so for example, if we were to do compilations, the tooltip will tell us that BOU Broadcasting made $5,300 in December from compilations alone. So that's great. So how do I do this? So if you notice here in the visualization menu, there's a tree map option, and then there's category, details, and values. So category could be very important if you want to make your data even more filtered and varied. However, we only need to focus on details and values. So in this case, values are what we want to be shown. This will determine the size of the square in the tree map. So in this case, sum of partner revenue. So if you just drag your partner revenue here and do the sum, and then drag your cleaned season into the details. That's it. That'll make our tree map. And it's that easy. So the only additional formatting I had you do was just to make sure the title is Total Studio C Revenue by Season. So this next part, probably the hardest part of the challenge, is to be able to get this table here in the top right to be able to show up, which shows the top 10 sketches viewed in December. And we wanted to make sure that clicking on a season in the tree map would update this table. So for example, if we want to look what were the top 10 ones in season 5, we can see top soccer shootout ever with Scott Sterling is the top one, obviously, followed by these Hunger Games musical ones, etc. So if we change that, we can see what that is like. So first, let's look in this table here. We're going to use this table option, and let's look at the filters that I applied to make sure that this happened. So the challenge is saying make sure to filter out any blank sketches. So you'll notice I added this sketch YouTube title is not blank here. Oh, also, let me focus before jumping into the filters. We want two columns, right? We want the sketch YouTube title and the owned views, which you can drag into the columns table, again, by taking owned views and then sketch YouTube title from the sketch list into the columns. And so then we just want to make sure our filters are correct. So we want to filter out all the blank ones. So in this case, you can do basic filtering, select all, and then just uncheck the blank ones. And that's just to make sure we don't have to worry about any irrelevant data that's left over. And so then, again, sum of owned views is fine. We want to keep all the sum of owned views here. There's no reason to limit that. And then we have the top 10 filters. So this is a really good way to rank things in Power BI to make sure that there's only 10. So what you can do is you can, on the filter type, so notice here this was basic filtering. If you do another filter and change it to top N, you can do top 10 and then your by value, you can do by anything. However, if you want to be consistent with presenting data correctly, you should make it by what you're also trying to display here. So in this case, sum of owned views is great. Then you can click Apply Filter, and that will apply it correctly. By default, this will automatically interact with other visuals that you have on the page, so you actually don't need to do anything to make sure that happens. I threw that in the challenge to kind of teach you that. So hopefully you guys realize that you didn't have to do anything additional to have this tie out to the tree map. So lastly, I had you guys add a slicer so we could slice it by day. Very similar pattern to the one on the first page. So you just grab a slicer here, right here, and then by day, go to the slicer settings and make sure it's a vertical list. It's probably going to default to a between or something like this. So you're welcome to use it like this. However, I like to just use vertical list for consistency. I should go ahead and mention, I should have mentioned this earlier. In the total revenue breakdown, I had mentioned how I want you to have the daily revenue peak change with the week selection, but I wanted your average daily to stay the exact same. So if you want to be able to toggle specific interactions like that, what you're going to do is you're going to click the slicer, you're going to go into Format, and then you're going to hit Edit Interactions, and then you can see that there's options here that show how they interact with it. So if you have this highlighted here, it's not going to change with the week. However, we want to make sure that it does, so we want this to not be highlighted here. So, hold on, there we go. And then you'll notice I have the average daily revenue. This does have this toggled, which means that doesn't change with the visualization. So that's good stuff. We like this. So let's go back to the season by season revenue and answer our last questions. So I had you guys answer 3 questions here at the end. What was the most popular Studio C sketch on Christmas Day? So in this case, how would you figure this out? You would go into the day, you would click Christmas Day, and then you would see top soccer shootout ever. We don't want to filter here because we're just looking for the top overall on Christmas Day. So you can see soccer shootout got the most views. So then the next question says, what was the most popular Studio C compilation on Christmas Day? So then we would just click compilation. We can see top Christmas videos in Studio C was by far the most, which I guess that makes sense, huh? And then our final question, how many Christmas-themed sketches were in the top 10 total views in December? So in this case, we want to get out of compilations, we want to get out of date, we just want to look at the top 10 and see what Christmas ones show up. So Crayon Song, probably not. Christmas, top soccer shootout ever, volleyball blocks, probably not. Christmas videos is there. White elephant, that's a Christmas word. Jason loves Christmas. Christmas shoes, Light the World, Frosty the Stuntman, all pretty much Christmas. Luggage balls might be. Maybe we should look that up sometime to figure that out. Lots of Christmas songs here. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this challenge. It's a good way to just relearn some of the basics in Power BI. And I hope you guys are able to use this to generate some exciting and awesome visualizations and data in your future careers or current careers. Thank you.